My in-laws announced they're moving into our neighborhood without telling us. My husband's epic response made them regret everything. I, 34F, need to vent about the absolute chaos that erupted at our family dinner last night. My in-laws dropped what they thought was exciting news, but it's turned our lives upside down in ways I never expected. For context, my husband and I have lived in our current neighborhood for 5 years. We specifically chose this area because it's close to both our jobs, but gives us enough distance from family to maintain healthy boundaries. Don't get me wrong, I love my in-laws, but they can be intense. Last night, we were hosting our monthly family dinner. Everything was normal at first, the usual small talk about work, weather, and local gossip. Then, right as I was serving dessert, my mother-in-law practically bounced in her seat and announced they had wonderful news. They'd just put down a deposit on a house. In our neighborhood, 3 streets away from us. The fork literally froze halfway to my husband's mouth. I watched him slowly set it down, and the tension in the room suddenly became thick enough to cut with a knife. See, we'd specifically talked about this scenario with them 2 years ago when they first mentioned wanting to downsize. We'd explained very clearly why having some physical distance was important for everyone's relationships. My father-in-law kept going on about how perfect it would be. They could help with future grandkids. We don't even have children yet. We could have impromptu dinners every week. They could just pop by whenever they wanted. With each word, I could see my husband's jaw clenching tighter. Then my sister-in-law chimed in about how blessed we were to have such involved parents, shooting me one of those looks she gives when she thinks I'm being difficult. The same look she gave when I selfishly wanted a small wedding instead of the 300-person extravaganza they'd planned. That's when my husband spoke. His voice was quiet but firm, the kind of tone that makes everyone stop and listen. You need to cancel that deposit. The silence that followed was deafening. My mother-in-law's face crumpled like she'd been slapped. My father-in-law started turning red, sputtering about how they'd already paid the earnest money. My sister-in-law gasped like she was auditioning for a telenovela. But my husband wasn't done. He laid out everything. How they'd repeatedly crossed boundaries we'd set, how they'd deliberately gone behind our backs with this decision, how they'd tried to manipulate the situation by announcing it at dinner, so we couldn't react honestly without looking like the bad guys. He brought up incidents I'd almost forgotten. Them showing up unannounced during our honeymoon weekend getaway. They'd called the hotel to find out where we were, using their spare key, meant for emergencies, to redecorate our guest room while we were at work, planning our holidays without consulting us, and then guilt-tripping us when we had other plans. The kicker? They'd actually looked at houses in several other neighborhoods that were closer to my sister-in-law, who'd been begging them to move near her for years. But they'd chosen our neighborhood specifically because they knew we needed them more, even though we'd explicitly said we didn't want that. My father-in-law tried to argue that they were just trying to be good parents, that we were being ungrateful. My husband cut him off. Good parents respect their adult children's boundaries. They don't try to force their way into every aspect of their lives. My mother-in-law started crying, my sister-in-law was yelling about family loyalty, and my father-in-law stormed out, muttering about ungrateful children. Dinner ended with slammed doors and tears. This morning, my phone is blowing up with messages from extended family members calling us selfish and cruel. My sister-in-law posted a vague Facebook status about toxic people who destroy families. My husband's cousin even called to tell us we're tearing the family apart, and that we'll regret this when his parents are gone. But here's the thing, my husband is standing firm. He says he's done letting them bulldoze over our boundaries, and honestly, I've never been prouder of him. For years, I watched him struggle with saying no to them, always trying to keep the peace at the expense of our own comfort and autonomy. We're not saying they can't move closer, just not 3 streets away. There are plenty of lovely neighborhoods within a 15 to 20-minute drive. Close enough for regular visits, but far enough for everyone to maintain their independence. Am I wrong for supporting my husband on this? Should we just accept it and try to make it work? The guilt trips are hitting hard, but something about this whole situation feels manipulative and wrong. Edit. Thank you all for the supportive comments. To address some common questions. 1. Yes, we've had multiple conversations about boundaries before this. 2. No, they haven't canceled the deposit yet. They're insisting we'll come around. 3. We've already changed our locks and security system codes. 4. My husband is in contact with a family therapist to help navigate this situation. Update. My father-in-law just texted saying they're going ahead with the purchase anyway because families should stick together, and we'll thank them later. My husband's response was to book us a consultation with a real estate agent. If they're moving in, we're moving out. I guess this is the hill we're dying on. Final update. After seeing we were serious about moving, they finally backed down and canceled the contract, losing their earnest money in the process. They're now not speaking to us, but honestly, the silence is peaceful. My husband says it's the first time he's felt like he can breathe freely in years. Sometimes you have to be willing to be the bad guy to maintain healthy boundaries.